Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rabbi Sharif. I'm here today to explain a case study. May a few of you know about it. So, what is social entrepreneurship and social enterprise? So, basically, social entrepreneurship and social enterprise in UK have become established sector. The government of UK defined a social enterprise as business that trade for social purpose, and they have a social mission, and it's aimed to help. So they bring their income through selling goods and services, and they receive a profit and reinvest those profit to a social mission. For example, running a community projects. So in the UK, a new report published in 2018 by Social Enterprise UK found that social enterprise are worth around 3% of UK GDP. So three times larger than the agriculture sector and 5% of all UK employment. So in this case study, we are going to look at this established company, which is Big Issue Company. So Big Issue is a social enterprise that enable homeless individuals to work and earn income, and they also try to overcome their personal poverty. And they take increase of their life. So specifically here, we are focusing on challenges and opportunity at a social enterprise facing during COVID-19. So as an impact of COVID-19, all businesses are forced to close and change everything. So on 20th March 2020, the Big Issue decide to remove its all vendors from the street. So it affected by two parties. First one, the vendors, the homeless who buy those magazine. And the second thing, the business itself. So the vendors, they immediately lose their income and lose the positive social interaction with the customers. And also the business itself, which is a big issue, their income dropped by 80%. And immediately they change business model and social mission. So it could be suitable for homeless to earn more money to help them. So we talk about the introduction of a big issue company, and then we will move on our outline. So in our presentation, we will cover four points. First, we will look at the big issue founder and partner about their family, education, and career, and also what the motivation that make big issue happen or established. So and also the second point, we will explore the opportunity of big issue. The third point, we will discuss the challenges that face big issue in different stages. Finally, and we will take a look of big issue success. So I hope you enjoy in our journey. So the founder of Big Issue, John Bird, he said that Big Issue has an issue. So he trying to promote the name of Big Issue to provide the voice of homeless to the people. So we will talk briefly about his family and his life and education. So about his family, he born in a poverty-stricken family, and at 19 he was a father. About his education, he is excluded from school. He learned to read, write, and the basics of printing. Also, he attended Chelsea School of Art. About his career, he was a poacher boy and he set up a small scale printing and publishing business in London. So you can find the passion of printing or sorry for printing and publishing in his early career. Also work in House of Lord and watching dishes. Then he was a board of director of Big Issue Company, and then he is non-party political peers. So you can see the development about his career begin from what to what. So let's see the timeline about his life. So you can see that his experience of homelessness basically, and he's lived a tough life about his life. So he's feel what homeless feel until he's met his friend Jordan Riddick. So the question is how their personality impact on big issue development. They have a significant impact of big issue development due to their experience about this field and about the social mission. So from this idea, they create a big issue. So they have a significant impact about this. And then let's talk about their motivation From here, as Murphy and Combs said that the motivation of begin social enterprise, the knowledge and experience you branded them, and also the social goals they hope to achieve. So they have knowledge and they have experience. So from here, the motivation come from community, which is Juliet. You will continue our presentation.
Thank you. The Big Issue magazine was launched in 1991 in response to the growing number of rough sleepers in the streets of London. For 29 years, the business model has remained almost the same, producing a magazine that is sold by people who are homeless or at risk of homelessness. This type of social enterprise is called work integrated social enterprises. The Big Issue, like many social enterprises, runs two separate legal entities: the Big Issue magazine, which is a for profit business producing the magazine, and the Big Foundation, a not for profit charity, which supports the homeless people who sell the magazine. This type of social enterprise focuses on improving employment prospects for those furthest away from the labour market, as described by Batalani et al. And their research on tensions in hybrid organisation. And so, like most social enterprises, the Big Issue operates a dual mission. Like all social enterprises, the Big Issue has to balance a fine line between running a profitable venture and maintaining its social mission. According to Betalani et al., two main factors influence the success of a hybrid organization and reduce mission drift. The first is the founding team's early emphasis on accomplishing the organization's social mission. Now, the Big Issue is a great example of this. One of the reasons that the Big Issue is well known as a social enterprise in the UK is because its key social activities are built into its day to day business model. That is through the vendors selling the magazines on the street. It is very easy for customers to identify the business's social activities. This is a strong competitive advantage, and we believe one of the main reasons that it's been so successful for so long. Founder influence also plays a key role in how the social mission is embedded into the organization. As Ruba shared earlier on, both John's personal experience of homelessness and professional experience of print journalism greatly influenced the organization. The second influencing factor, they believe, is the organization's ability to achieve high level of economic productivity. The Big Issue magazine is a self-sustaining business, but even a successful model like and a successful business like the Big Issue faces challenges related to mission drift, which Stephanie will touch on later. I'd like to address the changing faces of their vendors and how this has affected the Big Issue's mission. According to Bertolani et al., the involvement of beneficiaries, and in this case, the vendors, is key to achieving the social mission. Although anyone who is homeless and in danger of losing their home or living in temporary accommodation can apply to be a vendor, not everyone can apply to access the services that are offered by the foundation, that is the Big Issues charity. And so the foundation is currently not able to offer the kind of support that most of the vendors need. Take up for support is very low compared to the number of vendors, with only 305 vendors out of the 1,500 registered vendors receiving support through 5 foundational offices in 2018 to 2019, according to their report. The two entities, although dealing with the exact same group of vendors, have different definition of who a vendor is, as we can see from the slide. Furthermore, the effects of COVID have reduced the vendor's ability to participate in the organization. Pre-COVID, almost all magazines were sold on the streets by vendors, making it one of the most successful magazines in the world. Pfizer will talk more about the magazine's response to COVID as a business, but I'd like to highlight the challenges it posed on their social mission. The vendors selling the magazine on the street is a key element of the organization's brand and mission, and looks the business looks to find ways to survive as a magazine, the foundation has to try and protect its social mission, which is closely linked to the vendors being on the street. So how has COVID affected the vendors? One of the main motivations for selling the magazine is to have access to an income. But another key benefit is the legitimate ways it offers the vendors the opportunities to engage with society. The cause of homelessness have always been complex, and the big issue foundation clearly seems to be faced with having to address whether its social mission, as part of a social enterprise, is using its resources in the most effective way to tackle social exclusion and homelessness. Secondly, can the big issue achieve its social mission without the vendors on the street? Removing the vendors on the street, we believe, would reduce its brand value and reduce magazine sale and really affect its social mission. I'm going to hand over to Stephanie now, who will address some of the other challenges that the organization has gone through.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Populabanga, and I'll be presenting on the challenges of the big issue. So the big issue faced a lot of challenges at different stages, and I'll be taking you through each challenge that they faced at these stages. And so let's start with the early days challenges. Okay, so during the early days, they faced the challenge of resistance, and so they had to try and convince a lot of the homeless to become vendors because most of these people didn't know how they were going to go about selling magazines. They didn't know whether people would actually buy magazines from the homeless, and so they were kind of resistant to become vendors for the big issue, and so it became a problem for the big issue, trying to convince a lot of the homeless to become vendors. Another problem that they faced was competition. When they started, there were other organizations that were doing other things to help the homeless. And so it was quite difficult for them to compete with these organizations to get the vendors, which were the homeless on their side to actually sell the magazines for them. Another problem was low pricing. So they decided to price their magazines so low that for the first 3 months, they were able to sell all the magazines, but they didn't make any profit. So now we'll move to the ongoing challenges. And so the big issue is still faced with the challenge of having to emphasize to people that they are a social enterprise and not a charity. So most people believe that the big issue is a charity and that they are just, giving the homeless money, food, and all of that. But the big issue is always faced with the problem of having to tell people, having to convince people that no, these homeless are actually selling the magazines and making an income for themselves. And another challenge that they are still facing is having to create awareness to the public, having to educate the public on the activities that these vendors are involved in. Because some people see these vendors on the street and then they wonder what they are all about. What are they even doing? And so they are always faced with the problem of creating public awareness. So this slide talks about the legitimacy, human resource, and the financial difficulties of the big issue. So in 2007, Romania and Bulgaria joined the EU. When these countries joined the EU, a lot of their residents, who are called A2 nationals, decided to migrate to the UK for greener pastures. And the main reason for which a lot of these people migrated to the UK was because of the big issue. And when they ended up migrating to the UK, they started claiming for housing benefits and other incentives. So a lot of people started blaming the big issue for being the reason for which a lot of people were migrating into the UK. And another factor was human resource. And so for human resource, the big issue didn't have any supervision on its vendors. And so these vendors are on the street selling the magazines. There is no supervision as to whether they sell or not. And most of them end up taking money from people and not giving them the magazines. And so there were a lot of social vices that a lot of these vendors were engaged in because there was no supervision. The other factor was finances. And so when it comes to finances, the big issue decided to price their magazine at a lower rate. And so they end up not making profit because they priced it so low. They are able to sell all their magazines, but the profit that they were making was very low. They were not even making any profit to to kind of boost their business. And it became a problem because as a social enterprise, the funds that you are using for the production, that's the same amount of funds that you use. So if you are selling and you are making literally no profit, then it's a problem. It will definitely affect your production. So what do you think happened to the big issue during coronavirus? And so when COVID-19 came, a lot of lockdowns came, and the big issue had to move all its vendors from the streets. And this was a big blow to the big issue because if vendors are moved from the streets, no selling of magazines, then how are these vendors going to feed themselves? How are they going to survive? And so it became a very big problem. It's one of the challenges that the big issue faced during COVID-19. So I would hand over the presentation to Faisal to continue with the successes of the big issue. And he's going to talk about the successes the big issue faced during coronavirus.
Hi everyone, I am Faisal and I would like to talk about the success of the Big Issue. The Big Issue is a social entrepreneurship company which has more than 30 years experience of helping to alleviate the suffering of homeless and create jobs for them. There are some achievements of the Big Issue, such as more than 200 million copies of the magazine sold and 92,000 people have sold the Big Issue. Also, in the past 25 years, vendors have earned more than £115 million. Last but not least, 3,700 new vendors walk through the Big Issue door every year. So it seems the Big Issue has big achievements. But the rate of deaths of homeless people in England has increased by 51% over the last 6 years. So this leads us to ask a question. Has the Big Issue really achieved its objective and goals, or the issue need more than one organization like the Big Issue in order to address the problem of the homeless? Ongoing success. First, consumption of print and digital magazine. All customer consumption was for print magazines from 2000 until 2010. After that, the usage of internet has increased rapidly. This led to an increase of digital magazine from 2010 until today. With regard to profit of print and digital magazine, the profit of print magazine is generally higher than the digital magazine as shown by this graph. Move to the Big Issue income in particular, we have found that the Big Issue gained more than £1,200,000 in 2018, and they gained more than £1,100,000 in 2019. Therefore, the Big Issue did not move to digital. Also, according to John Baird, who is the founder of the Big Issue, stated that if the Big Issue move to digital, the vendors will not gain profit of selling the magazine on the street. Success during COVID-19. What happened in 20th March was a disaster for the Big Issue because they lost 80% of their revenue in one day. So this led to make pivot for the company, which is mean that a structured course correction in their business. As we can see in 20 March, first lockdown. After that, just 2 weeks, and they launched a new app. So they process on the app, and also they respond to the COVID-19 in their magazine. So they gained award of the most inspiring example of media response to the COVID-19. After that, on 15 of June, they have 8,000 subscription and copies in retailers, and on 17 of June, they have supported over 2,000 vendors through supermarket vouchers. Also, on 20 of June, they have 3,000 download of the app, and finally, on 6th of July, they back to sell the magazine on the street. But unfortunately, there are new lockdown, which was announced in 4th of November. So the Big Issue have to move all vendors from the street. So this is need to be solved by new strategy of selling the Big Issue magazine. Let's see their new strategy. So they have a feature in their app which lead the customer to have unlimited access on weekly basis for only £2.49, but previously they sold one print magazine for £3. So it seems the profit might be decreased, and also how they can help the vendors to gain the profit of selling the magazine on the street. I will leave you with Juliet to talk about the conclusion.
In conclusion, Ruba in her presentation highlights the importance of founder influence on social enterprises. In our presentation, we wanted to show how the big issue has been a good example of social enterprise that has successfully shown that a business can make a profit and have a strong social mission. It has done this by integrating its social mission into its core business activities right from the start. For example, supporting homeless people into paid employment. Nevertheless, even after 29 successful years, the big issue continues to face challenges and tensions related to pursuing commercial and social objectives. Stephanie shared with us examples of some of these challenges. Pfizer went on to share examples of how the big issue has been able to achieve business success. But he also touched upon the separate challenges of trying to deal with a very complex and wide issue as homelessness. Thank you so much for listening to our presentation. Here's our list of references. Again, thank you for taking the time to listen to our presentation, and we welcome any questions.